With me now is Adam Harding. He is a financial planning and investing in the form of solving problems, navigating complex tax, legal, insurance, and an investment structure is extremely difficult but a necessary task and what Adam loves to do. Being able to be thoughtfully harmonize these separate important pieces of our lives is what I believe sets Adam apart from other advisors. In addition, he prides himself as a boutique firm and provides a personal touch to each client. Please help me welcome Adam.
Thanks, Walter.
Yeah, welcome to the summit. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. Thank you for having me and allowing me to escape the house in coronavirus lockdown. So it's quite helpful. So
a little background. I mean, Adam and I actually 3 years running co-taught the class at UCLA, and so he's got a boutique firm, incredibly knowledgeable in how he views this process. And so, Adam, just why don't you kind of in the beginning just talk about your firm and your philosophy and.
Yeah, sure. So I'm Adam Harding, certified financial planner. My firm is Harding Investments and Planning. It is a boutique firm, and actually I just instituted a policy where we are only going to work for 100 clients, which is by definition boutique. If anything has become clear to me through this, 35% drop in 4 weeks from coronavirus, is that you have to absolutely know who you're working with, because data and quantitative inputs to a financial plan, they just start to not matter in the middle of chaos. So we, by design, are a boutique firm.
So that's, you just get to know them at a different level. I know that I read a lot of what you push out, and so much of it is focused on just behavior.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's controllable, right? So you don't know when a pandemic's going to hit. You don't know what the Fed's going to do. You don't know what the president's going to tweet. So you have to optimize what you can control. You have to optimize costs, behavior, diversification, and those controllable factors can improve outcomes without needing to know what's going to happen, a week or a month or a year from now.
Walk me through what's the process for you in terms of when somebody walks into your office.
Sure. Yeah. So somebody comes in, you always have to start with why. And I know the material you've covered in this class is very similar to that. You have to start with, what do you want to accomplish? And that first meeting is it's a fact finding. It's an exploratory meeting. It's, what are your principles as an investor? What are my principles as an advisor, at a firm owner? And how do we maybe fit those things together? But you have to put in big, bold letters right at the beginning, why? What's the purpose? And everything has to fit that purpose, which as an industry, financial advisors were not really great at focusing on that purpose. A lot of times you walk into an office and it's, hey, I've got my thing I sell, so I'm going to listen to you for a second, but ultimately I'm just going to come back to the thing that I sell. So I try to go with what's the purpose, and then try to figure out if we align, and if we don't, that's okay. But ultimately it's just a big fact-finding mission.
So you're seeing that advisors are quick to offer solutions without getting to the why, which is, it's almost misdiagnosis.
Absolutely. I mean, if you go into an office and you say, look, I'm at X and I want to get to Y, and an advisor tells you it's going to be like this like straight line, they're not doing their job. Because life isn't like that. Life is like this, and you ultimately hope to get to Y, but life throws changes at you. And people want certainty and they want linearity, but it just doesn't exist. And that's okay. But the types of principles that I try to convey is that planning is the idea. It's not a plan, it's not a product. Planning, the verb, is actually what you should go for.
And talk about once you get into the why, and then what's next?
Yeah. So we get to the why. Sometimes the why is, Adam, I just want to make more money. And I understand that, but you have to come up with an idea. You have to decide what the timeline is for that idea. Like, it can't just be, Adam, I want to make more money. It has to be like, well, when do you want to make more money? Over 10 years, over 1 year? And then what's the money for? Is it for a Ferrari or healthcare or college education? So all of those details start to dictate the type of investment strategy we arrive at. But then after you get there, then you can start to say, okay, what are the puzzle pieces that we're working with to get to your why? You know, what does your tax situation look like? How much qualified money do you have? How much non-qualified money do you have? Does Roth conversions make sense? Like, we have to figure out all of the details, and then once we get there, we can start to build a strategy that optimizes taxes, but also gets you to where you want to go with the least amount of risk possible.
And then from there, are you an active guy or are you a passive guy?
Yeah.
How does?
Yeah, the data is pretty crystal clear about active management. Over the last 10, 15, and 20 years, the success rate of actively managed mutual funds, their ability to beat the stock market, is about 20%, give or take 1 or 2% there. So some people will approach you and say, look, I'm the guy who picks the 1 out of 5, right, that beats the market. I think that that's not very pragmatic. So at a core, you need to, or I believe you need to be passive, right, to lower costs, to track an index, to preach low cost, low turnover diversification. Now, I will say this though, passive investing can be unnecessarily rigid. So for example, the S&P 500 has 505 companies in it right now. If Standard & Poor's comes out and they say, we're going to add company XYZ to the S&P 500, immediately the price of company XYZ spikes through the roof. And then all the index funds, because they're just stuck following that index, have to go buy company XYZ after the price has already risen. So passive investing purely can be a little bit too rigid and it can disadvantage investors. It's like if you pulled up to an auto dealership and you had to buy a car that day. That doesn't really put you in a great negotiating position and you may not end up getting the best deal. So at a core, I like to be passive because of its low costs, but there's a way that you can highlight factors and a way you can be a little bit less rigid than pure passive investing while still keeping cost diversification and turnover low.
How have you kept people in the game during
Yeah.
this crazy crisis?
You mean the crisis where I was, working from home with a 9-month-old baby, and I mean, it was a lot, but conversations, and it comes back. I mean, that was actually the reason why I put a line in the sand and said we're not working for more than 100 people. We just I can't come back to it enough. Like we know the financial details of the clients we work with. We know their income, their tax situation, their net worth, their, all the things that on paper are important to them. But when the sky is falling, you have to understand with empathy the person that's sitting across the table from you and know how they've invested in the past. What did they do when the market fell 20% in 2018? What did they do in 2008? If they were investing in 2000 and 2002, how did they react to the tech bubble? And you have to go and you have to talk to each individual person and essentially dig into your bag of tricks as an advisor to help keep them on board. I call it righteous tricks, right? You're kind of like trying to figure out ways to keep them on board and trick them into realizing that this is the best thing for them when the sky is falling. And anybody that was able to stay the course during that, I mean, I pat you on the back, and we certainly try to do that for our clients.
What do you not do?
Oh, man, you got to turn the news off, for one. We know that the news is our enemy in a lot of these cases. What you got to do is you got to have in big, bold letters, like what's the purpose, right? Like, and you just have to contextualize. If your goal is 10 years away, all of a sudden you can start to run these stress tests and say, okay, well, is this going to be as bad as '08? Because if you invested right before the 2008 financial crisis on October 12th, the market top, and invested for 10 years, you had a great outcome, even though you had the worst timing in a century. So what you can't do is lose focus of what you're investing for. What you have to do, though, is you have to, again, go back to what you can control. So in March of this year, investors with money in qualified accounts like IRAs, harder to do in a 401k, but let's just say an IRA, for example, if you hold on to an asset that's 20% or 30% cheaper because the coronavirus came and shut down our economy, but you still hold it for the long term, you have an opportunity there to say, look, I was going to hold this anyways. let's convert it over to Roth. Let's at least run that analysis. To convert that asset that's 20 to 30% lower, pay 20 to 30% less taxes over to Roth, you have to consider all of these ways that have nothing to do with panicking, and they have everything to do with optimizing your long-term rate of return because you have a rules-based approach. So it's don't panic, don't lose focus on your goals, do focus on what you control and follow your preset plan.
You said rules-based approach, which I've been preaching here for a little bit, so I thank you for that plug. What do people get from Harding Wealth Management that they don't get at Smith Barney, at Merrill Lynch, or
Yeah.
the bigger shops?
Yeah, I mean,
Because there's a view, and answer this: is it better, safer to be at the big behemoth versus a boutique like yourself?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think it's better to be with me, obviously, but yeah, it all comes down to just personal touch. And that's the big one. I mean, clearly I don't have all the, conflicts of interest and things like that a big firm comes with. I don't sell proprietary products. I don't get commissions for selling certain things. I don't have any of that. But mostly it just comes down to people wanting to work with somebody who knows them well. So I'm 36. So one of the big things with starting my practice that I've seen from clients is they're like, look, Adam's going to be around not only for our retirement plan, but also to help our kids as life unfolds for them too, and our grandkids. So that's really, I think, the differentiator. The other thing, I mean, it's just knowing who you're working with, communicating, hey, look, I've got a 9-month-old, thanks for allowing me to reschedule that meeting. But no, it's bringing people into the fold, treating them like family, treating them like I would want to be treated.
Who's your ideal client?
Honestly, it's somebody who's on board, collaborative, wants to learn, because if I haven't been able, if you don't want to learn going into a situation like where the market gets 35% of it shaved off in a short amount of time, like if I haven't taught you and helped you contextualize that and realize what our plan is ahead of time, it's a recipe for bad outcomes. So I like clients who they want to learn, they want to be a true partner in this. They're not just saying, hey, Adam, take this and go with it, because ultimately I'm going to need both of us to be bought in order to improve the outcomes.
How has it been for you? I mean, to be a boutique firm and be a new father?
It's been amazing, obviously, but fatherhood changes the game. It definitely changes the game. Certainly, when you work with individuals and, as a CFP, you studied everything. You studied all the family planning. You've studied, you know the textbook definition of how to do something, but then life comes at you and you learn how to do it in the practical way. And so being a father, I think it's just added perspective for me. But running the firm, we're back to full operations, and we're wearing masks around the office and we're doing it, right? But yeah, it's all been good. It's all been good.
How do you answer the question somebody comes in and they've just gone across the street to the big firm and then they come to see you?
Yeah, I just say, look, there's a different path for everybody. If you want big marble desk or oak desk or whatever it might be, and to be one of 10,000 employees or 10,000 clients, and have 100 employees serving you, that's totally okay. It is. It's just okay. But with an independent firm like mine, who custodies at TD Ameritrade, has all of the technology to compete with them on an apples-to-apples basis, and the only difference is that you text my cell phone when you have a question versus wait on hold for 45 minutes calling Merrill Lynch or whatever it might be. If that's the difference, then I can swallow that pill. If somebody wants to go to the bigger firm for better service offerings or something like that, I totally understand it. But it's just two different kinds of offerings.
So is that really when you made the decision to go 100 clients, is that really what drove that? Is you really wanted to have that ability to have that level of interaction and responsiveness?
It wasn't even, it was the fact that I saw we haven't had a crash like we had 2 months ago or 3 months ago, ever. I mean, it's gotten really scary a couple other times, but we haven't had something like that where it happened so quickly, and it opened my eyes to the ability for me to keep people on course is 100% reliant on my ability to know exactly who I'm talking to on the other line. It can't be somebody who filled out a questionnaire, who I barely met, who opened an account, and I picked some mutual funds from. It just can't be that. It has to be somebody who's shared their dreams and their goals and their fears and their family and I have to know exactly what I'm talking about. And 100 clients is my limit. And I think that, there's certainly firms that I'm sure can do a comparable job with more than 100 clients. I felt like that was my limit, and we're slightly below that right now, but we're committed to that.
And what was your conversation? Was it different amongst
Everyone was different. You have to use different tools, and it's a lot of listening. I mean, admittedly, I go into all these conversations wanting to talk 10% of the time, and I probably talk 40% of the time. But you have to go and you have to listen, and you have to just let people, kind of uncork on you a little bit. When things are scary like that, it's scary, right? There's no way around it. It's highly emotional. We're all humans. Your advisor is a human. If you're listening to this out there, I'm a human. We all have the same fears. And so all we have to do is just acknowledge that first. But I need to be a release valve for clients at the very beginning rather than just slamming you with data and data and data and data and reasons why not to sell. I have to start out with being a release valve. And in order for me to be an effective release valve, I have to know exactly who I'm talking to.
Address the safety issue, because somebody's watching, they're saying, well, I just feel more safe at Merrill Lynch.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So
is that a legitimate concern?
There's always Adam, what happens if you get struck by lightning? And I say, well, hopefully that doesn't happen. But I have a strong business continuity plan. So your money is always at TD Ameritrade, and we have a robust financial plan for you. But your money is always held at a third party where you retain full control. That's how investors a lot of times get into trouble, is they put their money with somewhere where they don't have full control. But in this case, TD Ameritrade is soon to be merged with Schwab, going to be the biggest custodian in the country. And so all that happens is if something happens to me, client just has their own accounts, they find another advisor, and it's totally fine. Now, I will say this, that is the risk that you run, right? If working with a 36-year-old advisor who, there's not 20 advisors here all begging to take over the client if something happens to me or something, that's the risk that you run. Certainly when I'm 46, maybe the firm has 3 or 4 more advisors and we don't have just 100 client minimum. But right now, our focus is on it being a boutique firm with a handful of clients that we can really, really serve well.
Thank you. Parting thoughts as we wrap up.
Parting thoughts. Well, I got to say that this summit is such an amazing opportunity for investors to learn a lot about their own personal financial situation. I've done something like this at UCLA before, and it was fantastic. It was great to educate people. And I think if you're on this summit, you are focused on educating yourself. And I think anybody that you work with should continue that education and should keep you informed about why they're doing the things that they're doing and why it makes sense for you personally. And I think that that's the only way to build a financial plan.
Great. Thank you, Adam.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for coming.
Mm-hmm.